Hello and welcome to today's Mulberry Talent Partners Leadership Conversation. I'm going to give participants just a few more moments to continue logging on. Okay, I think we can go on ahead and jump right in. So again, welcome to today's leadership conversation. My name is Laura Back. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events here at Mulberry. If you're new to us, welcome. We are a full-service staffing and recruiting agency headquartered in Portland, Oregon, with an additional office in the San Francisco Bay Area. We specialize in the professional placement of human resources, professional and financial office, payroll and operations roles for direct hire, temp to hire, and contract opportunities. I would encourage you to check us out online at mulberrytalent.com, where you can browse through all of our previously recorded career and leadership conversations, browse upcoming conversations, as well as look at our full suite of service offerings for clients and organizations. Jumping right into introductions, we are joined today by our fabulous founder and president, Lauren Francis. Lauren founded Mulberry in June of 2017, bringing over 25 years of talent acquisition and entrepreneurial experience. And it's my pleasure to welcome Kristen McConnell, who is the newest member of the Mulberry team. She joined Mulberry just last month, bringing over 25 years of talent acquisition and staffing experience. And we're so excited to have her here with us. And again, my name is Laura. Jumping into our guest speakers today, we are welcomed today by Lou Cleary, who is an HR advisor with Reach Community Development. She joined Reach in 2015 as their Human Resources Director and brings over 25 years of experience in human resource leadership management. Her experience entails all areas of human resources, leadership development, employee relations, recruitment, compensation, training, and spans 8 states with HR responsibilities for up to 2,000 employees. She also holds her BA in Human Resources Management from George Fox University. And we're also pleased to welcome Christa King. Christa King is a senior HR manager with Reach Community Development. She joined Reach in 2016 as an office manager / HR generalist. 5 years later, she really has hit her stride and follows her passions, which include employee relations and retention, DEI work, benefits, training, and wellness. She developed her deep interest in employee experience with more than 20 years in management across various industries. Christa earned her BA in HR management and leadership from Portland State University. So welcome, Christa and Lou. We're so pleased to have you here with us today. Yeah, so we want today to be very interactive as always. So please feel free to use either the Q&A box or you can use the chat function to submit your questions, and we will address those questions as they come in. So without further ado, I'm going to go on ahead and pass it on over to Lauren, Kristen, Christa, and Lou.
Well, welcome everyone. It's great to be with everyone this afternoon, and to Christa and Lou for joining us on this conversation about pay equity. This actually got started because Lou and I were having one of our spirited conversations, as we always do, and we were just saying, Lou, you've got to come on, the Mulberry leadership conversations. You just have such great information to share. And so she goes, pay equity, let's do that. So here we are. We're doing pay equity, folks. So could you guys start, or Lou, could you start first and share and tell us a little bit about Reach, the organization?
Happy to do that, Lauren, and thank you for having Krista and I. We really appreciate it. And we have a lot of excitement and passion around pay equity. We've gone through a lot of trial and errors. So we feel we've got some information to share. First, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know Reach. Reach is been around for 37 years. It's a nonprofit low-income housing provider here in Portland, Oregon. We also serve Southwest Washington, Oregon and Southwest Washington residents. We've grown to a portfolio of over 2,500 units, residential units, and an additional 737 are in the pipeline. So we're growing pretty rapidly as an organization. We currently have 150 employees. We have positions like community managers, maintenance, resident service, part of the social service piece. But we also have a lot of admin. About a third of our employees are admin positions. So I wanted to share a little bit about our journey to pay equity. Pay equity was started in 2018. It was a bill that was enacted here in Oregon, and I believe Maine is the other state that it started in. At that time, Reach had already committed to enhancing our equity and inclusion practices. So pay equity was of interest to us to try and level set our pay and have more equal pay decisions made. So some of the commitments that we put into place around DEI was we hired a new equity inclusion manager, who is now a director of equity inclusion at Reach. So that has really helped us have a focus in that area. We implemented a more inclusive, restorative process in managing employee relations. So not the standard corrective action processes. We're just beginning the process of looking at less punitive and more collaborative. It's a really interesting way to apply, behavior in the workplace. Development of additional inclusive strategies involving treatment of residents and employee and resident experience. That has been a concern at times. Our values and making sure that they're aligned. It's a little different when you're dealing with a resident that is not one of your employees. You don't have the same rules, you don't have the same guidelines. So there's a lot of work to do there. Analyzing current recruiting processes for areas for improvement in DEI. We've increased networking outreach in diverse communities, and it's not just networking outreach. We're seeking candidates out where they are instead of expecting communities of color to find us. So that's a process, sometimes a challenging process, but it's paid off. We've hired a recruiter that had strong networking in the community, but maybe not as strong as in the recruiting. And so that additional networking helped Reach look at things outside of the box in the way that they were going to do outreach. Let's see. Adapting recruiting best practices that benefit DEI activities. So we are beginning to hire people with unique skills, not the skills that look good on paper, not the skills that are, if you want to hire a manager, this is what a manager has to have. Sometimes they've just been out and they've had completely different experiences, but have built incredible relationships or have a really unique skill set that would be beneficial that we hadn't thought about before as being a high priority talent or skill. So Reach's intentional focus on DEI improvements organically led us to fully embrace and implement pay equity. It's an ongoing compensation strategy and practice for us. And I just wanted to give some insight into how our commitment to pay equity came about. We were actually very focused on the diversity, inclusion, and equity commitment in our organization. Maybe that's a little long, but that's who Reach is right now.
Because I think a lot of companies, I mean, you're speaking to a lot of a lot of people that come from different industries and backgrounds, and it's really helpful to hear from an insider's perspective how pay equity has impacted your organization, and I'm sure you're not alone. And so, I appreciate I'm sure everyone appreciates all the detail. That's great. So, Christa, I have the next questions for you, actually. What is pay equity? How do you define it?
Well, pay equity in a nutshell, it's similar work plus similar qualifications should equal similar pay. It shouldn't be where a person came in or their former salary. It's really putting people in a spreadsheet. That's what we did a lot of. But so we really started with reviewing work of a comparable character, because that was the key for us in the beginning. Not all, we have different job titles, but many of our positions are actually a lot more similar than we realize. We looked at it and work that required substantially similar knowledge, skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions, regardless of the job titles. So certain positions that you wouldn't initially connect, we realized were actually pretty similar and should be in the same range with that. So we took a spreadsheet of every single job and labeled it by essential functions: the scope of work, accountability, supervisory, years of education required, and experience, and then grouped those together. And that helped us with the position part of it on determining pay, which then led us into the person part of it, because there are really two different sides of this. So in looking at the way we developed our pay equity process, well, first of all, we started with communication. We felt that there could not be enough transparent communication on this. It's something that, it really could have gone one way or another. You are giving people increases, which is great. It's in the spirit of equity. It's wonderful, but you want to make sure it's messaged correctly so that someone doesn't get focused on, well, wait a minute, you haven't been paying me enough. How long has this been going on? Like, come on. So that was really important to us in the beginning, months before anything was rolled out. We're like, hey, this is what we're focused on. This is what we're working on, really building into that and trying to get first senior leaders on board. Then we would meet with managers and then employees as well. So we asked everyone for updated resumes. I mean, we have some employees that have been with the organization for 20 years. They were like, you don't need my resume. I've been here. And I'm like, no, really, we do. You never know. It won't work for everybody, but it might get you more money. Like, play along. And they did. And it was really neat. So we assessed everyone's resume. And the way we started breaking it down into very complex categories and then realized that that was just ridiculous. It was not sustainable. So then we broke it down to, with experience being direct experience, related experience, and then indirect, unrelated, which doesn't really count for a whole lot. And we assign different weights. So direct experience has a heavier weighting than related experience. I mean, the related experience still helped build, but it might not be as valuable. And we also took experience if it was gained at reach or elsewhere with different weightings. And then we decided something else reach valued, educational level completed, depending on the position, of course, and any certifications. So let's use HR for an example. If they have a PHR, SPHR, that would be a certification that would also bump up their experience rating. If they're an outward facing employee, are they fluent in another language? Different things that really add value to the position. And from that, people get an experience rating. And if they are in a same job grouping, then we had a tool where it would be rated according, the highest rating would be at the top. And then we would analyze that with their pay and make sure that it was all in alignment. It wasn't. I mean, it was, but not nearly as much as, you hope going into this. So, one of the main things we realized, we had to document everything. We really were not sure what we were doing. There was not a lot of guidance at the time. And it was just like, okay, we are making this up together. We're a team of 4. Let's put our HR heads together, see where we're at. And we're really fortunate. We had one very technical person that is an Excel whiz, and she just made sense of all of that. So we all kind of had our separate roles on how we were going to look at it, how it would affect recruiting and retention, messaging, all of that. Let me see, what else? So then, again, we met with senior leaders, managers, and met with each employee separately when we did give increases due to the inequities that we found. And that was, again, messaging was very important, but really people were very receptive to it, which was nice. Didn't have a single person that took the other side of, well, I've been underpaid. It was just like, hey, this is really cool. You guys are taking the time and doing this and investing to make it right. So that's
a huge investment and undertaking, and bravo to you guys. And I was like, all these questions came up, and I'm sure the audience has also had them in their minds. I was going to ask you guys about, did you guys have a guide? How did this how did you create this? Did you have a model to follow? And it sounds like you didn't. And then I was going to ask, did this come off without a hitch? I mean, what were some of the challenges that you faced along the way that people can learn from.
Yeah, it did not come off without a hitch. Did I say that right? There were many challenges, a lot of trial and error. One of the biggies Christa touched on was communication. What helped us is constantly communicating through the process. And even the employees of course, employees that got an increase were happy, but even the ones that didn't, they understood the process because we were very transparent with them. So we built credibility as doing the right thing. Our organization, our leadership communicated, this is the right thing to do. It's about equity. And so that part went really well, but some of the things Christa just mentioned that we did not have guidelines. So no one had guidelines when this came out. So we started going to the trainings and we had to adapt it to our world. Everybody's organization is different, how you were going to manage it, how simple and how complex. And we weren't always sure that we were applying it right. So we started documenting it. And we wanted to prove at least best intentions if someone called us out on it, if someone filed a suit or a claim or challenged us on any of our processes. We did this and here's why we did it. And so we would document that we continue to document it as we make changes. Like Christa was saying, we initially developed a pretty complex process. We had a lot of factors in there that we were rating. And we realized pretty quickly that, whoa, this is too much. We need to make it simpler. And we did have someone who, one of the other challenges is just managing this, because every time someone left, every time someone came in, every time someone got promoted, all of those things had to be constantly updated so that what we aligned a group of people, we knew where everybody was and where that person would fit. So it's not easy, but we felt very strongly about the commitment to doing it, that we kept plugging away, and we had a lot of support, and that from the senior leaders, which makes a big difference if you have that. So when we decided we were going to make it less complex, we determined we needed to talk to the leaders of each of the departments, and what were the things they valued the most, because that's what we wanted to use. Obviously, experience, and in some jobs, education, and some jobs, not education would matter. But like in our buildings, for instance, we have different types of buildings, and our focus is on a certain resident population. In some situations, we have veterans just in a building. In other ones, we have domestic violence. We might have former addicted individuals in a building, and we have people that are specialized in helping them. Some of our social service employees can help with resources on those things, but those are difficult buildings. Those are a high-risk building. So do we pay them more? Is there more value in that? So we, with the help of our leadership, were able to refine our rating scale as we went along. And then, okay, we did the process. We go, oh, okay, so we have some inequities. We actually had 24% of our employees that were not paid where they should be. And so, okay, senior leaders, do you want to pay for all this right now, or do you want to wait? And so we went back and forth. We're going to do this in a couple different chunks. And we decided if we're going to walk the talk, that we're going to pay it all, and it wasn't in the budget. We didn't know that we were going to be doing this that in the last 6 months, the last year. So we decided to find the money somewhere in the budget, and we took care of those 24%. And that went really well with our organization and our employees. And like Christa said, we met with them individually. That was probably the best part of this, is we got to sit down with someone. In some situations, someone got a significant increase. A woman, a person of color who would come in because they were paid a certain amount before, were now getting equal to other people in their field because they earned it. They had experience in it, but they didn't, your last salary always followed you, and that's not right. And so once everybody got the hang of what we're doing, that sold itself. It really made a difference. We have a couple of challenges still. Comparing leadership roles. Leaderships, we kind of put those guys to the side until this last year, but the leadership positions, they have very similar jobs, very different jobs, but all are leaders and manage people, manage a department. So trying to figure that out and figure out how are we going to, look at equity within the senior leadership that's a part of the challenge. And then recruiting, validating unconventional skills. I talked about that earlier. Instead of rating, based on education and experience, their experience might be completely different. So we're still trying to work through that. Yeah, and I think, yeah.
I have a question. Did you tell me about some of the other challenges that you faced? I know that at Northwest Staffing, we went through a very similar exercise and journey, so to speak, that you did.
Yeah.
And then that, you get everything settled, and then you need to move forward with new hires. And then how do you keep those managers on track to not want to just go outside a little bit and say, oh, but I really like this person, I really want to get him in here. How do you utilize those tools? Are those spreadsheets still utilized for you to help in making that offer? Is that where that information comes from, or how do you work with that?
It kind of leads into Krista's next piece. Krista, do you want me to talk, or do you want to on that?
Oh, sure, I can take it. Thank you. Our age of negotiation is pretty limited these days. It's not that it doesn't happen, because it does. I mean, this is a hot market. It's, people are demanding a higher salary and getting it. We recently took a department and did a market analysis, raised the range, and also just raised everyone in that department.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time that that's happened. We're realizing that we need to do more frequent market analysis. We need to make sure that our longtime employees that have been with us are still being taken care of just as much as the newer employee coming in, expecting the higher salaries. But we're also, because we aren't negotiating as much as it was before, we're very transparent in the beginning with, once people are interviewed, about our pay equity process, what it is, why we do it, how it works in our system with that. We also share we're a nonprofit with a super rich benefit package. We have more holidays than I can count. I'm very confident if anything happens to me medically that it will not break the bank and I will be just fine. So, we share a lot of that in the beginning as well. That, and also the company culture, how it's safe to make mistakes here. We're a big family, and we're also very mission driven. So we focus, yes, we still negotiate for salaries. Everyone wants to get paid if they're going to work. But we also just share how reach is so much more than just that paycheck. And it really is not just the total compensation package, but the quality of work-life balance and the community you're working in. But it's definitely a challenge in this market. It's changing every day.
Well, and I would say we train the managers on this process, and there was a lot of pushback up front. It's like, what? We're not going to negotiate? And I said, well, we're not saying we won't, but it's going to be limited negotiation. Well, I won't get the best people. And the reality, it hasn't been that big of an issue. If we really want to give someone money, we have to move up a whole group. So the leadership of that department has to say, okay, I'm willing to do that to get this person. So it's a kind of hit and miss on how we go about this, but we still believe we're doing the right thing. So we're doing everything we can to be equitable in the process.
We had some questions come in.
Yeah, I see.
If I can jump in. So there are 4 here. I'm curious, with all this great work, do you participate in pay transparency? And if so, is that internal and external?
I'm going to say we don't. Wouldn't you agree, Krista? I'm an advisor now, so I'm not in the day-to-day, so I keep looking at Krista, but no, we do not. And I think that was just a decision that was made through leadership that we didn't feel we needed to share. I've been on the other side of that. It causes a lot of concerns sometimes if you don't do it right.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Robert asks, how receptive were those that didn't receive a bump, and how did you approach those conversations?
Krista,
Again, we messaged from the beginning, and because I truly believe, because we're a mission-driven organization, everyone here really just we're here for the good. And yes, you know, people want more money, but they're also like, oh, okay, so I've been paid fairly this whole time. That's cool. I mean, I was hoping for more, but that's fine too. I really expected more pushback.
Yeah.
And we just didn't get it.
Some of the awkward conversations were, you got a 5-cent increase, because we were level setting people, and they're like, what? And then that was worse than if we didn't give them something.
Yeah.
And it was hard. There were a couple of those, but I would say there's only a handful of people that had any concern.
Well, you guys established trust and credibility and transparency, and you communicate. I mean, all of that set the stage for, you know, a successful outcome. So
I think the communication was really key for anyone who's doing this. Explain it and share as much as you can. That's where you're building your credibility in the process.
Okay, another question from Marcus. What specific unconventional skills have you hired for and found success?
Christa, you want it?
You know, we've looked more at ties in the community, whether that's for, you know, a housing development position or a recruiting position. We're putting more value on things like that. Or, you know, there are skills that you learn that aren't necessarily in the traditional sense, like multitasking. Was this person formerly a server in a restaurant? Are they a single mom? Are they, you know, you don't realize how many things you just instinctually do, that we're just trying to recognize that experience comes in different forms, and it, you know, might not be exactly what you're doing, but it's still a building block.
And I would say that's been challenging in that, especially for HR, who has a standard process in the way that we hire people. And for us, it was like we were out of our comfort zone, but we were doing it for the cause, you know, and we were getting a lot of feedback to do this. And being on the other side, it feels really great, because we're looking at people from all different backgrounds, all different skill sets. But yeah.
And I think a key with it, though, is just the consistency across the board. Once you start recognizing it, you need to recognize it for everyone, and the different attributes that are brought.
Sense. I think you mostly have touched on this next question, but just in case there's anything you'd add, how did you handle anyone who was really opposed to this program?
I'm going to say there was some managers that were opposed because they wanted to get people in and they didn't think they'd get the best. And we had to work with them and their manager. And that was I don't think the employees there wasn't a real concern with the employees that were getting the increases or not. It was more about the managers worried about getting the right people in the door. Yeah.
Great. Those were the questions that came in.
Thank you, Laura.
Oh, and then another one just came in, if you'd like it. Robert says, not everyone performs at the same level, even if they have the same job with the same expectations. How did you differentiate or weigh that factor?
You know, thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for asking. I left that off and I did not mean to. And something else we've taken into account is we do annual performance reviews, and a person's performance rating will also add to their experience score. So in that way, it does, high performers are still being compensated. It isn't just fitting people into a box. That is recognized. Thank you.
And what that did was make us really stress with the managers the level of accountability on them, that they're doing the performance ratings correctly, that they aren't just being the nice guy and giving them high ratings. They really need to do it right so that this aligns well.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. How good does it feel to have had this process in motion and now in play pre-COVID? I know that there's a lot of stress on organizations right now for, you know, in lots of different areas, but one is the pay equity, you know, let's say, you know, taking care of this in the way that you did is obviously a huge commitment. And, you know, it's great to hear about your success with this. I just think that, you know, what so many companies are struggling with now, this is, you know, without this in place, it's even more problematic?
Mhm.
Does that play in at all to your experience with COVID, or maybe not?
I think that it has. It's, we did put, as soon as we learned about pay equity, we started acting on it. I mean, before it went into effect, we started studying and learning everything that we could. And we've really, inclusion has been one of our values, and equity has been a large focus for us for a few years now.
Mhm.
So it doesn't feel as much like we're struggling to play catch up, at least not with this, with technology and some other things with COVID, yes. But with this, I felt like we were already on the right track.
No,
I
that's
think communication could have been really hurt by this,
Right.
by COVID.
Yeah.
If we hadn't gone ahead of this before COVID even started, I mean, even those one-on-one conversations, they were really important to have, and we would have been doing them like this. So it wouldn't have been quite the same.
Mhm.
Sorry, Lauren.
Well, I think that employees too are really looking for leaders to show up in, pay equity is one area, but in terms of the level of communication and transparency, and in so many different ways. And so COVID has really kind of put a spotlight on just organizations in general, and people want more from their employers. And so in a way, how you guys, it's not, the pay equity is one piece, which is what we're talking about today, but how you guys set up that trust and transparency ahead, I think is benefiting your organization as a whole through this effort. So it's pay equity is a huge win, and in turn it's a win for the organization and for its employees. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because I think it's an important topic to highlight, or point to highlight. So,
Well, we have reached the end of our conversation. As always, it went very fast. So these are just a few ways that you can stay in touch with both Mulberry Talent Partners. I would encourage you to check out Reach CBC online as well. Connect with Lauren, Kristen, all of us, Christa and Mary Lou on LinkedIn as well. So thank you, Christa and Mary Lou, for sharing your wisdom with our audience today. I think it was really, really valuable. And thank you to our audience for your questions and input and help in making the session very interactive.
yeah, thank you all for being here with us today, and and to welcome Kristen to our webinar series, and to Mulberry. And we look forward to our next conversation with all of you. And thanks for joining us. Until next time. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.